Hey, what's up, everybody? So yesterday I asked you guys for questions you had about the Packers, and I want to go over, I would say, the amount of questions. The topic that came up the most was regarding the Packers and pass rushers and potential trades for pass rushers. So as you can see, I titled the video, should the Packers trade for Myles, Garrett, or Max Crosby? There were a few questions regarding Max Crosby, and I threw in Myles Garrett because as I was doing research and trying to see what would make the most sense for the Packers, I thought he made sense, and so I threw him in there as well. And so first question comes from @CoolGirlPatrice. She says, hey, Luke, my question is, should the Packers go out and get Max Crosby before or by the trade deadline coming up in a couple of weeks or so to help with the defense? So there is no doubt that right now, the area of the Packers team where they're struggling the most, having the most problems with, is the Packers and their pass rush so far this season. They're about middle of the road when it comes to overall pressure percentage in the NFL. So it's not like they're one of the worst in the league, but they're not really getting the production that I think lots of us hoped we would see from guys like Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith. And so when we look at Max Crosby, there's no doubt he is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. The Raiders just traded Devante to the New York Jets, and it looks like the Raiders, they're not going to be competitive this season. And so I think when you start to see teams that are clearly not going to be competitive come playoff time, that's why we start to see these teams trade off guys, pick up draft capital to build for future years. And considering that the Raiders just traded Devante Adams, that's why I think Max Crosby has been a guy that people have focused on. And the thing is, right now, it doesn't seem like the Raiders really want to trade away Max Crosby. Now, I don't always go based off of what GMs or owners say, because sometimes they'll say one thing and then 2 weeks later, something else happens. And I still remember a few years back when Pete Carroll went with the Seahawks and Russell Wilson had said they're not going to trade him. 2 weeks later, he's in Denver. So I don't always take what what comes out publicly from these guys as it's necessarily going to happen, because I think there is a price for any guy at the end of the day here when it comes to draft capital. But I do want to start off with that because it did come out recently on Bleacher Report earlier today. They shared this. This is written by Doric Sam. This is regarding Max Crosby. It says here, however, Raiders owner Mark Davis quickly put an end to that speculation and told reporters on Tuesday that Crosby won't be going anywhere. Quote, it's unfortunate today, but there's so much outside chatter that is not true, Davis said per The Athletic's Vic Tafur and Tashawn Reed. Quote, it's not coming from any sources. It's not coming from anything. My basic thing is never to answer all that stuff because otherwise you get trapped in this black hole. It's just not happening. And Adam Schefter, they shared here early in the week, had said, I believe earlier in the year, there might have been a team that asked the team about Max Crosby and might have floated a one, Schefter said during an appearance on the Pat McAfee show. I think they said, yeah, you start with multiple ones on that guy, and even then, we wouldn't even entertain it. So it doesn't sound like the Raiders want to trade Max Crosby. He seems to be the piece they want to keep with the team as they move towards the future. It sounds like even maybe multiple ones wouldn't necessarily entice them. And so that's important to note. But again, you never know for sure. But when we do look at Max Crosby, right now he's tied for 15th with 15 pressures among edge rushers per PFF. He's tied for second with 5 sacks, and he's 33rd at edge rusher with a 14.1% win percentage, which is way better than Rashawn Gary, who I think, based on how he's being paid, you'd hope he'd be producing at a similar level to Max Crosby, to a Myles Garrett. But unfortunately, that has just not been the case, and that's why we've been, considering these type of conversations. I think that if Rashawn Gary had been playing at a, top 10, top 15 level, this wouldn't necessarily be as much of a topic. But because he hasn't really been playing that well, Preston Smith hasn't been playing that well, that's why we're talking on this. And now to Myles Garrett, which I think makes a little bit more sense here, because it doesn't sound like the Raiders want to trade away Max Crosby. Myles Garrett, he's 28.6 years old, so he'll be 29 in, I'm guessing, a few months, maybe early next year. Right now, he is tied for 5th most pressures at 26, tied for 12th most sacks at 4. This is among edge rushers per PFF. The second highest win percentage in the NFL at 27.5%, just behind Aiden Hutchinson, who of course went down with that really, really gruesome injury that took place this past weekend. Feel bad for him. That's a tough injury. He is currently under contract through 2025, and he'll be under contract in 2025 and 2026. And just looking at this Packers roster, as we said, the edge rusher position, the defensive line when it comes to getting pressure, hasn't been very good. And when you look at the rest of this team, I'd say there's not that many holes. Right now, the Packers have the 9th best scoring defense in the NFL. They're forcing a ton of turnovers. Jordan Love is starting to play at a top-tier level. The rushing attack is great, but the defensive line is definitely an area of need. And so just thinking about Myles Garrett here, the Browns are currently at 1-5. Deshaun Watson has not been playing good. You'd assume that they may want to try to trade away some players, as they did Amari Cooper to the Bills yesterday. And I wouldn't be surprised if Myles Garrett could be a guy that they could potentially try to see who could be interested, maybe get a first-round pick, a second-round pick. I would assume you'd at least have to give a first and second. I wonder if they'd want multiple firsts. And just looking at it from the Packers' perspective, first off, would the Packers be better with Myles Garrett? Obviously. I think you also throw in the fact that Preston Smith is almost 32 years old. Myles Garrett is still 28. I think he still has a good amount of years left of top-tier production. And if Rashawn Gary hadn't been playing poorly, I don't think we'd entertain a kind of trade like this. But for years, the Packers have been a team that has, been the one giving players away, trading away Aaron Rodgers to get draft capital, trading away Devante Adams to get draft capital. And now they have a ton of really, really solid young talent on offense and defense. Guys like Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Evan Williams, Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bullard. Tons of guys on rookie deals. They did pay up for Xavier McKinney. They paid up for Jordan Love now with his new contract. They paid up for Josh Jacobs. And there's no doubt, putting Myles Garrett on this Packers team takes them to a completely different level. Because if you can have Myles Garrett out there or Sean Gary, Myles Garrett, he's been producing at the highest level. There's no doubt he would make this team better. The question becomes, do you want to give up that draft capital? Would you really want to give up a 1 and a 2 if that's all it took? Is that worth it in Brian Gutekunst's mind? I feel like typically he likes to hold on to draft capital, which I would say for the most part is a good strategy. And I was thinking about this before this video. If I was Brian Gutekunst, would I really be willing to trade away a 1 and a 2 to bring in Myles Garrett? And I decided on 100% yes. I just think that right now with the cheap contracts you have at receiver, the fact that right now in Jordan Love's deal, the cap hits for the next few seasons aren't really massive. They get bigger as time goes by. And I feel like the Packers could, bring in one more guy like a Myles Garrett where it's going to be expensive in the next couple seasons, but I really think it would take this Packers team to another level and fix one of their weaknesses right now, which is on the defense. And when it comes to his contract, currently according to Spotrac, the team that acquires him in a trade would only take on $806,000. So the Packers could easily do that this season. They currently have about $13.83 million of cap space, so they could easily do that. But in 2025 and 2026, he will have a $19.8 million. He'll have to get paid in non-guaranteed, $25 million non-guaranteed 2026. And the Browns would take on a lot of dead cap hit, $19.3 million in 2024, $36.2 million in 2025. So you'd have to give up capital. You'd have to pay him. But I honestly think that with the amount of talent the Packers have here, this is a move I think that it would be worth making. Now, do I think Gutekunst will do it? At the end of the day, I'd probably guess no. We just haven't seen Gutekunst make a ton of big splash moves at the trade deadline in times past. He's been the guy to trade away guys like Rasul Douglas last season, which in hindsight, I do wonder if he would have done it. It seemed at the time like the Packers were not going to be competitive. That turned around later in the season. So it's an interesting idea to think about these trades. People are wondering if they should do them. I personally would like the Packers to trade for an edge rusher. I think that with the team you have here, this is going to be a team that's going to be competitive come playoff time. And if you can get an edge rusher that can actually win at a high level consistently, that's going to make this team dangerous at a whole nother level. I think it's worth it, even given the potential price. Another person some people brought up was Hassan Reddick. It came out here, asked by @GoPackGo, Cheesehead for Life 57. Love your username. They said, should the Packers try for Hassan or Reddick? He's had some issues with the Jets. They traded for him. He comes in. It seems to be some kind of contract issue where the Jets haven't given him what he wants, so he hasn't been playing. He moved on, or the people who were running, his agent, basically, his agency, moved on from him. He got a new agent this week in Drew Rosenhaus, who a ton of NFL players have him as an agent. And it sounds like the Jets, are trying to trade him or allowing him to potentially be traded right now. The one thing that I think makes it tricky is I came across this from Pro Football Talk today. It said, PFT has confirmed that the price the Jets will pay to the Eagles increases from a third-round pick in 2026 to a second-round pick in 2026 if the Jets retrade Reddick to any NFC team. That nugget was first reported on Tuesday by Josina Anderson. So the Jets traded with the Eagles for Hassan Reddick. And if the Jets trade him to an NFC team, the Jets will have to take it from a third-round pick to a second-round pick when it comes to what they're giving over to the Eagles from that information right there. So you would think the Jets, if they trade Hassan Reddick, would rather trade him to the AFC just because you know if you're the Jets, you don't want to give up a second when you can give up a third instead. And I would assume there's some other team in the AFC who would take him. So while there's no doubt he would make the Packers better, I do question, the whole process, the whole situation with the Jets. It's pretty tricky. It seems like both sides haven't been on the same page. Not sure if it's the best idea from that standpoint to bring him to Green Bay. And then with that other added fact I just shared, it may be tough for, that to happen. So that's basically my thought on the whole edge rusher situation. Can the Packers still be competitive without adding one? Yes, but it would bolster this team to another level. Can you imagine Myles Garrett out there rushing the passer and just the problems he would cause for opposing quarterbacks with pressure, which would then lead to obviously more interceptions, more Xavier McKinney interceptions. So I would be pumped if that happened. Will it happen? I doubt it based on Gutekunst's history, but it could be that he sees this time frame differently just because this is such a good team right now. But yeah, that's basically what I think about that entire situation. Now here we have from @MittHass says, talk to us about Marshawn Lloyd's estimated return timetable and where he fits in this running back room with Emmanuel Wilson playing above expectations. So Marshawn Lloyd is eligible to return from the IR this week, which is good news. As he brought up, Emmanuel Wilson has been playing really well. He's actually averaging more yards per carry than Josh Jacobs at 5 yards a carry for Wilson, 4.3 yards a carry for Josh Jacobs, but Josh Jacobs does have a ton more attempts, 108 carries to Emmanuel Wilson's 42 carries. And I've loved Emmanuel Wilson for a couple of years. Even last training camp, I predicted that he made the roster just because I thought he was a talented player. And I thought that if he had gotten more opportunities, he would succeed. You look at before this season, last season in a short amount of carries, as well as in the preseason, he was averaging around 5 yards a carry. And right now he's doing that with already 42 carries. And so, Wilson has played so well. It's been really awesome to see. And I feel like he's getting better and better. Now, that's a question with Lloyd coming back. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. He's a little bit more of a different type talent. I think has an insane speed factor. We saw that in, I think it was a carry or rush early in the year before he got injured. But I would assume that they'll try to get Marshawn Lloyd involved a little bit, sort of see what he can do. But I don't think he should really be taking the ball out of Jacobs or Emmanuel Wilson's hands right now based on how they've been playing. But that's something to watch going forward. Now, here we have from @APBC6ZZ. In your opinion, how do you rank the NFC North in order? So the NFC North is stacked. The best division in the NFL right now. Vikings 5-0, Lions 4-1, Bears 4-2, Packers 4-2. And it's pretty crazy to think that the Packers are last in the NFC North at 4-2, tied with the Bears. But as I was thinking about this, obviously I'm biased as a Packers fan when it comes to ranking among NFC North teams. And, it never feels good to go, I think the Vikings are better, which honestly I don't. And I was asking myself this question, if you're an AFC team, NFC team come playoff time, which team in the NFC North would you be more terrified to face? The Vikings do have a very, very good defense, a lot of weapons on offense. The Lions are a pretty complete team. They did just lose Aiden Hutchinson. The Bears, great defense. Caleb Williams has gotten better. But of those quarterbacks right now, who would I be more scared to face? I would say Jordan Love. Now, again, maybe I'm biased, but out of those quarterbacks, the guy who I'd be most scared of come playoff time is Jordan Love. And the way this defense is playing, the Packers have really started to, look really good against the Cardinals last week. And so as the Packers, get into rhythm, Jordan Love's, healthy now pretty much. I do think the Packers are the most dangerous team in the NFC North. Call me biased. That's my opinion. Now here we go to @GodOfThunder9379 who says, how many interceptions will Jordan Love throw? And how many interceptions will Xavier McKinney have by the end of the season? Go Pack, go. So right now, Love is at 6 through 4 games. And so I think with 11 games remaining, I think Love will end around 14 interceptions, which would be 8 more in the final 11 games, which I don't think will be too much of a problem based on how often he throws touchdown passes. Now here we have another, my teeth here. And then I think with Xavier McKinney, he's at 5 interceptions so far. It's tough to keep at that streak, which fell off this past week, not forcing an interception. But I think he's going to get 5 more in the final 11 games, which would put him at 10 for the season. So that's sort of my thought on that. Then we have a couple more here from at Tony5565. Since the Devante era is now over in Oakland, how did the Packers make out in that trade netting Walker and Watson? So the Packers, of course, trade away Devante, get back a 1 and 2, use it on Walker and Watson. I think so far, I would say the Raiders probably won that trade just when it comes to the production you got out of those players during that time frame. Devante was still producing at a very high level. Christian Watson was good here and there, but he's dealt with so many injuries, hasn't really done a ton. He's done a lot better recently. He's had his times where he's played really well, but with all those injuries in the past couple seasons, it's been tough for him. Now, Quay Walker, I think he's gotten a little bit better as this season has gone on. But all in all, I think that there's a lot of other linebackers who could replace him and play at a similar level. And so just right now, I would say that the Raiders got a little bit more production off of that trade. Now, in the future, Watson, if he stays healthy, we saw what he did against the Cardinals. And Quay Walker, I think, is getting a little bit better. So in the long run, the Packers could end up winning that one. But so far, Devante, I think, has produced at a higher level. And here we have from at HectorG24812. Who do you like more in a nickel formation, Nixon or Bullard? And who do you think should be our second corner? So right now, I'd probably have to go with Bullard just because that allows Evan Williams to come on the field at safety. So it's not necessarily because I think Bullard is better than Nixon in the slot. I think it's because you need to find a way to keep Evan Williams on the field, and you can also push Keyshawn Nixon outside. And it felt to me like when they had Bullard at slot, Williams at safety next to McKinney, and Nixon on the outside, it felt to me like that was the best unit they had out there. So that's what I would say for that question. Now, finally, we have at Curly Rabushka 8260, if I said that properly, rank every NFC North QB. Love number 1, Goff number 2, Williams number 3, Darnold number 4. I think that in the long run, Williams could jump Goff, but I still think Love is the best, most talented quarterback in the NFC North. Thank you guys for your questions here today. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below. You can follow me on Twitter at LukeBeller3, and I'll see you guys next time.